In a quiet corner of the galaxy, far from the bustling trade routes and glittering cities of more advanced civilizations, humanity was considered little more than an afterthought. The other species of the stars often dismissed humans as small, fragile creatures who had barely scratched the surface of what it meant to be a spacefaring race. They were seen as weak, clumsy, and unremarkable, hardly worth noticing. But in their ignorance, these alien races failed to see something important about humanity: its potential. Adam Carter wasn't anyone special. He was just another worker on a routine mission, stationed aboard a mining vessel that floated above a barren moon. The moon itself was nothing extraordinary, a lump of rock covered in gray dust and jagged craters. It had no atmosphere, no signs of life, and certainly no value beyond the minerals buried deep beneath its surface. Adam's job was simple: oversee the extraction machines and make sure they didn't break down. It was tedious work, but it paid the bills back home on Earth. On this particular day, however, things were different. As one of the drills bored into the moon's crust, it hit something unusual. Not a mineral deposit, but something metallic. The machine screeched to a halt, its sensors flashing warnings. Adam frowned and pulled up the data on his tablet. Whatever the drill had struck didn't match any known material. Curious, he suited up and climbed into the rover to investigate. When he reached the site, he found a strange object partially exposed in the dirt. It looked like a sphere, smooth and black, with faint patterns etched across its surface. The lines glowed faintly, pulsing with a soft blue light. Adam hesitated for a moment, unsure if he should touch it. Something about the artifact felt alive. But his curiosity got the better of him. He reached out and brushed his fingers against its surface. The instant he made contact, the sphere reacted. Its glow grew brighter, and the patterns shifted, swirling like liquid under his fingertips. A low hum filled the air, vibrating through Adam's suit and into his bones. He stumbled back, heart pounding, as the sphere lifted off the ground and hovered in front of him. For a moment, he thought it might attack him, or worse, explode. But instead, it simply floated there, studying him. Back on the mining vessel, alarms began blaring. The crew scrambled to figure out what was happening. Sensors picked up strange energy readings emanating from the artifact, readings unlike anything they'd ever encountered. When Adam finally returned, carrying the sphere carefully in his arms, the entire team gathered around him, wide-eyed and whispering among themselves. No one knew what the artifact was or where it came from, but everyone could feel its power. Some suggested it might be a weapon left behind by an ancient civilization. Others thought it could be a tool, a gift, or even a trap. Whatever it was clear that it was far beyond human understanding. News of the discovery spread quickly. Within hours, Earth's top scientists and military leaders were demanding answers. Ships were dispatched to retrieve the artifact, and soon, all eyes in the galaxy turned toward the tiny, insignificant mining operation on that desolate moon. Little did anyone know, this single event would set off a chain reaction that would change everything, for humanity and for the rest of the galaxy. As Adam stared at the glowing sphere in the cargo hold, he couldn't shake the feeling that they had awakened something far greater than they could comprehend. And deep down, he wondered if humanity was truly ready for what lay ahead. The discovery of the artifact quickly became impossible to keep secret. Within days, news of its existence reached every corner of human space and beyond. Alien species who had once ignored humanity now took a keen interest in what was happening. Laura Bennett, a seasoned diplomat known for her calm demeanor and sharp mind, found herself at the center of a storm she hadn't anticipated. Laura's job was to maintain peace between humans and the various alien civilizations scattered across the galaxy. It wasn't an easy task. Many of these species viewed humanity as primitive, unworthy of their time or respect. But Laura had always believed that diplomacy could bridge even the widest gaps. That belief was about to be tested in ways she couldn't have imagined. Two factions emerged almost immediately after word of the artifact spread. The first were the Valens, a graceful and highly intelligent species with shimmering silver skin and elongated limbs. They were explorers by nature, driven by a deep curiosity about the universe. Their ambassador, Lyra Nix, contacted Earth within hours of hearing the news. She expressed interest in studying the artifact, claiming it might hold answers to questions that had puzzled her people for centuries. Her tone was polite but firm, and Laura sensed genuine concern beneath her words. The second faction, however, was far less friendly. The Zorethians, a warlike species with armored bodies and glowing red eyes, wasted no time making their intentions clear. They sent a fleet of massive warships to the edges of human-controlled space, demanding access to the artifact, or else. Their leader, Admiral Kelvor, broadcast a message directly to Earth, his voice cold and commanding. "Your kind is weak," he declared. "You cannot protect such power. Surrender it, or we will take it from you." Laura knew the situation was dire. The Zorethians weren't bluffing. They had a reputation for crushing any species that stood in their way. And while the Valens seemed peaceful, they too had powerful technology and motives that remained unclear. Humanity was caught in the middle, and the stakes couldn't have been higher. Back on Earth, debates raged among government officials and military leaders. Some argued that the artifact should be shared with the Valens, hoping to gain their trust and protection. Others insisted it should remain under human control, believing it could provide the edge needed to defend against the Zorethians. Laura listened carefully to both sides, weighing the risks and benefits of each option. In the end, she knew there was only one path forward. Humanity had to prove itself capable of handling the artifact on its own. Her decision came just in time. The Zorethians grew impatient, launching probing attacks on human outposts near the border of their territory. These skirmishes were small but devastating, leaving entire colonies in ruins. Panic spread across human space as people realized the threat was real. Laura worked tirelessly to negotiate a temporary ceasefire, using every ounce of her skill to buy humanity more time. Meanwhile, the artifact continued to defy explanation. Scientists studied it around the clock, trying to unlock its secrets. What they discovered was both thrilling and terrifying. The sphere seemed to respond to human touch in ways it didn't for other species. When placed in close proximity to people, it emitted bursts of energy that enhanced physical abilities and sharpened mental focus. Some test subjects reported seeing visions, flashes of ancient landscapes and towering structures unlike anything on Earth. It was as if the artifact was alive, communicating in a language no one fully understood. As tensions escalated, Laura faced a growing sense of unease. She knew the artifact was dangerous, not just because of its power, but because of what it represented. To the Zorethians, it was a weapon to be seized. To the Valens, it was a mystery to be unraveled. But to humanity, it was something else entirely. A chance to rise above their limitations and prove they belonged among the stars. Late one night, as she reviewed reports from the front lines, Laura allowed herself a rare moment of reflection. The galaxy had underestimated humanity before, dismissing them as insignificant and weak. But those same qualities, their adaptability, creativity, and sheer determination, might be exactly what saved them now. As she stared out the window at the distant stars, she whispered a silent prayer. "Please let us be ready." Little did she know, the true test was only beginning. Daniel Hayes had always been a man of science, a physicist by trade. He spent most of his life buried in equations and experiments, searching for answers to questions no one else dared to ask. When news of the artifact reached Earth, Daniel was immediately called to join the team tasked with studying it. He didn't hesitate. This was the kind of discovery scientists dreamed about, a chance to uncover something truly extraordinary. The artifact was brought to a secure facility on Earth, hidden deep underground to protect it from prying eyes. It sat in the center of a large, sterile lab, surrounded by sensors and monitoring equipment. The sphere pulsed faintly, its glow casting soft shadows on the walls. To Daniel, it looked almost alive, as if it were waiting for something or someone. At first, progress was slow. The artifact resisted every attempt to analyze it. Its surface was impenetrable, defying even the most advanced scanning tools. But Daniel wasn't discouraged. He spent hours observing it, taking notes, and testing theories. Then, one night, he noticed something unusual. When he placed his hand near the sphere, the patterns on its surface shifted slightly, aligning themselves in ways that resembled mathematical formulas. It was subtle, but undeniable. Excited by the discovery, Daniel shared his findings with the rest of the team. Together, they began running simulations based on the patterns they observed. What they uncovered shocked them. The artifact contained detailed blueprints, not just for weapons or machines, but for technology far beyond anything humanity had ever imagined. There were designs for energy shields, faster-than-light travel systems, and even devices that could manipulate matter at a molecular level. It was like finding a treasure map to a future where humans weren't just participants in the galaxy. They were leaders. But the artifact's secrets didn't stop there. As the team continued their research, they noticed strange side effects in those who worked closely with it. People exposed to the sphere began exhibiting unusual abilities. Some developed heightened reflexes, moving faster than should have been possible. Others reported sharp increases in intelligence, solving complex problems in seconds. A few even claimed they could move objects with their minds, though these reports were met with skepticism at first. Daniel himself experienced changes. After spending hours studying the artifact, he found his thoughts becoming clearer, his focus sharper. Problems that once seemed impossible suddenly felt within reach. At first, he thought it was just excitement or lack of sleep. But when other members of the team reported similar experiences, he realized something profound was happening. The artifact wasn't just sharing knowledge, it was changing them. News of these developments spread quickly, reaching the highest levels of government. Military leaders saw an opportunity to turn the tide against the Zorethians, who were still massing their forces on the edges of human space. They ordered prototypes built using the artifact's designs, hoping to create weapons and defenses capable of repelling the invaders. Factories worked around the clock, churning out experimental gear for soldiers and pilots. While the military prepared for war, ordinary citizens also began feeling the effects of the artifact. Across the globe, stories emerged of people performing feats they never thought possible. A construction worker lifted a fallen beam off a coworker without effort. A young girl solved a math problem that had stumped her teacher. These incidents were small but significant, proof that humanity itself was evolving. Daniel watched all of this unfold with a mix of awe and unease. The artifact had given humanity incredible power, but it also raised troubling questions. Why had it chosen them? What did it want in return? And what would happen if they pushed too far, too fast? One evening, as he stood alone in the lab, staring at the glowing sphere, Daniel whispered aloud, "What are you really?" The artifact didn't answer, but its light flickered briefly, as if acknowledging his question. For a moment, Daniel felt a chill run down his spine. Whatever the artifact was, he knew one thing for certain. Humanity was standing on the edge of something vast and unknown, and there was no turning back. The Zorethians had run out of patience. For weeks, they had watched humanity scramble to understand the artifact, their fleets lingering menacingly at the edge of human space. Admiral Kelvor, a towering figure clad in black armor with glowing red eyes, issued one final warning. Surrender the artifact, or face annihilation. Humanity's leaders refused, knowing full well that giving in would only invite further aggression. The Zorethians wasted no time. Within hours, their massive warships descended upon human colonies like storms of fire and steel. Emily Ross was stationed on the frontier when the attack began. A skilled fighter pilot, she had spent years patrolling the edges of human territory, protecting supply lines and scouting for threats. She thought she was ready for anything, but nothing could have prepared her for what came next. The Zorethian ships were unlike anything she had ever seen, bristling with weapons and moving with terrifying speed. When they opened fire, entire colonies were wiped out in minutes. The sky turned red as explosions lit up the horizon, and the screams of the dying echoed through the void. Emily's squadron was caught off guard. They had been running routine patrols near a small mining outpost when the first wave of enemy fighters appeared. Her heart raced as alarms blared inside her cockpit. "Multiple bogies inbound," shouted her wingman, Jake Miller, over the comms. Emily tightened her grip on the controls, her training kicking in. "Stay sharp," she replied, her voice steady despite the chaos around her. "We can't let them take this sector." The battle was fierce and chaotic. The Zorathian fighters moved with unnatural precision, their weapons cutting through human defenses like paper. Emily's squadron fought valiantly, weaving between enemy ships and returning fire with everything they had. But for every Zorathian fighter they destroyed, two more seemed to take its place. One by one, her teammates fell, their ships exploding in bursts of flame. Jake was among the first to go, his last transmission a desperate cry for help. Emily clenched her teeth, forcing herself to focus. There would be time to grieve later, if she survived. As the odds grew worse, Emily realized they couldn't win. Not here, not now. Their mission wasn't to hold the line, but to survive long enough to warn Earth. With grim determination, she ordered the remaining pilots to break formation and scatter. "Get out of here," she said. "Tell command what's coming." Some obeyed, their ships disappearing into the darkness. Others stayed behind, sacrificing themselves to buy time for their comrades. Emily stayed until the very end, dodging enemy fire and launching counterattacks with reckless abandon. Her fighter was battered and smoking by the time she finally broke away, the colony below consumed in flames. The journey back to Earth was a blur of exhaustion and grief. Emily replayed the battle in her mind over and over, haunted by the faces of her fallen friends. She knew the Zorathians wouldn't stop, not after seeing how easily they could crush human resistance. By the time she reached Earth, news of the attack had already spread. Cities were gripped by fear, and emergency broadcasts urged civilians to prepare for the worst. Military leaders worked tirelessly to fortify defenses, but everyone knew the truth. Humanity was outmatched. When Emily landed, she was immediately summoned to a briefing room filled with high-ranking officers and government officials. Her hands trembled as she recounted the details of the battle, her voice cracking under the weight of what she had witnessed. "They're coming," she said finally, looking around the room. "And they won't stop until we're gone, or until we give them what they want." The room fell silent as her words sank in. For the first time, humanity faced the reality of its situation. The galaxy's most fearsome predators had declared war, and there was nowhere left to hide. As Emily stared at the map of human space projected on the wall, marked with the locations of destroyed colonies, she felt a spark of anger ignite within her. The Zorathians thought humans were weak, easy prey. But they didn't know what humanity was truly capable of. Not yet. Outside, the sun was setting, painting the sky in shades of orange and red. It was a beautiful sight, but Emily couldn't shake the feeling that darker days lay ahead. Still, she allowed herself a small flicker of hope. If humanity could stand together, if they could harness the power of the artifact, they might just have a chance. And if not, then at least they would go down fighting. The attack on the frontier colony sent shockwaves through humanity. Fear and anger rippled across Earth and its settlements, but they were quickly overshadowed by something else: resolve. Humanity had always been a species that thrived under pressure, and now, with their backs against the wall, they showed just how resilient they could be. General Marcus Hale, a grizzled veteran with decades of military experience, became the face of this new determination. He stood before the people, his voice firm and unwavering. "We will not bow," he declared. "We will fight, and we will win." Under Hale's leadership, humanity began to transform. Factories that once produced consumer goods were repurposed to churn out weapons and ships. Scientists worked around the clock to adapt the artifact's technology for battlefield use. Soldiers trained harder than ever, preparing for a war unlike any they had faced before. But what truly set humanity apart was the way ordinary citizens stepped up. Farmers became engineers, teachers became medics, and office workers became pilots. Everyone had a role to play, and no one shied away from the challenge. The changes weren't just physical, they were mental. The artifact continued to influence those who came into contact with it, unlocking abilities that seemed almost superhuman. Some soldiers developed reflexes so sharp they could dodge incoming fire. Others found themselves able to anticipate enemy movements as if reading their minds. Even civilians reported strange powers, like heightened strength or the ability to sense danger before it arrived. These enhancements didn't come without cost. Some suffered headaches, fatigue, or worse, but few complained. In the face of extinction, every advantage mattered. Emily Ross, still recovering from the loss of her squadron, found herself at the heart of this transformation. Her first-hand account of the Zorathian attack had galvanized the military, and she was given command of a newly formed elite unit. Known as the Iron Hawks, her team consisted of the best pilots and soldiers humanity had to offer, each one handpicked for their skill and adaptability. They were equipped with experimental gear based on the artifact's designs, sleek fighters capable of speeds that defied physics, energy shields that could withstand heavy fire, and weapons that harnessed raw power unlike anything seen before. Training the Iron Hawks was intense. Every day brought new challenges, both physical and mental. Emily pushed them hard, knowing their survival, and humanity's, depended on their readiness. Despite the pressure, morale remained high. The pilots joked and teased each other during downtime, forming bonds that would carry them through the toughest battles. Among them was Ryan Brooks, a quiet but fiercely loyal soldier who had lost his family in one of the early Zorathian raids. His determination inspired the others, a reminder of why they were fighting. As humanity prepared for war, word of their efforts spread across the galaxy. Other species watched with a mix of curiosity and disbelief. Many expected humanity to crumble under the weight of the Zorathian onslaught, but some, like the Valens, saw potential in these small, fragile beings. Ambassador Lyra Nex reached out again, offering limited support in exchange for access to the artifact's secrets. While human leaders debated the offer, Laura Bennett worked tirelessly to ensure the alliance wouldn't compromise their position. She knew trust was fragile, especially in times of war. Meanwhile, the Zorathians grew more aggressive. Their fleets moved closer to Earth, probing defenses and testing humanity's resolve. Skirmishes erupted along the borders, small but brutal clashes that left both sides bloodied. Yet every time the Zorathians struck, humanity responded with surprising ingenuity. Guerrilla tactics, clever traps, and unexpected counterattacks forced the invaders to rethink their strategy. Slowly but surely, the tide began to shift. One evening, as Emily stood on the deck of a training facility, watching her team practice maneuvers under the stars, she felt a flicker of hope. Humanity wasn't just surviving. They were adapting, growing stronger with every challenge. The Zorathians might have numbers and firepower, but they lacked one thing: the unyielding spirit of a species that refused to give up. Emily smiled faintly, her gaze fixed on the horizon. Whatever came next, humanity was ready, and the galaxy was about to learn just how dangerous they could be. Humanity's war against the Zorathians was unlike any conflict the galaxy had ever seen. Instead of meeting their enemies head-on, humans adopted tactics that were as unpredictable as they were effective. Small strike teams, operating in secret, infiltrated Zorathian supply lines and crippled their operations behind enemy lines. These missions were risky, often deadly, but they gave humanity a fighting chance against a foe far superior in numbers and firepower. Ryan Brooks led one such team. A quiet man with sharp eyes and a steady hand, Ryan had quickly risen through the ranks after proving himself in early skirmishes. His leadership style was calm but firm, earning him the respect of his squad. They called themselves the Shadow Wolves, a name that reflected their stealthy approach to warfare. Their mission was simple: disrupt, destroy, and disappear before the enemy even knew they were there. One night, Ryan and his team were sent deep into Zorathian-controlled space. Their target was a massive fuel depot, a critical hub for the invaders' fleet. Without it, the Zorathians would be forced to retreat and regroup, giving humanity precious time to prepare for the next wave of attacks. The plan was straightforward: plant explosives at key points and detonate them remotely. But getting close enough to carry it out was another matter entirely. The team traveled in a small, cloaked shuttle, its design based on technology reverse-engineered from the artifact. The ship blended seamlessly into the darkness of space, invisible to Zorathian sensors. As they approached the depot, Ryan reviewed the plan one last time. "Stick to the shadows," he reminded his team. "We get in, do our job, and get out. No heroics." Everyone nodded, their faces grim but determined. Once inside the depot, the Shadow Wolves moved like ghosts, using enhanced reflexes and heightened awareness granted by the artifact's influence. They avoided patrols and security systems with ease. Ryan took point, his every step deliberate and silent. Behind him, his teammates worked quickly, planting charges at strategic locations. The tension was palpable, each second stretching longer than the last. But things didn't go perfectly. As they were setting the final charge, an alarm blared, shattering the silence. A Zorathian patrol had stumbled upon one of the explosives, triggering the alert. Ryan cursed under his breath and signaled for his team to fall back. "Forget the last charge," he said over the comms. "We're blowing it early." The explosion lit up the depot like a second sun, sending shockwaves rippling through the structure. Fires erupted, consuming everything in their path. The Shadow Wolves didn't wait to admire their handiwork. They sprinted toward their shuttle, dodging falling debris and pursuing enemies. It was chaos, but Ryan kept his cool, guiding his team through the inferno with unwavering focus. Back aboard the shuttle, adrenaline coursed through their veins as they watched the depot collapse in their rear cameras. The mission had been a success, though not without cost. One member of the team, a young engineer named Lisa Chen, had stayed behind to ensure the charges went off. Her sacrifice weighed heavily on everyone, but Ryan knew it wasn't in vain. Thanks to her bravery, the Zorathians had suffered a major blow. While teams like the Shadow Wolves waged guerrilla warfare, others fought battles of a different kind. Samantha Drake, a hacker-turned-spy, worked tirelessly to infiltrate Zorathian communication networks. From a hidden base on Earth, she tapped into their encrypted channels, feeding false information to their commanders. Under her guidance, entire fleets were lured into ambushes or sent chasing phantom threats. The Zorathians, once confident in their dominance, began to grow frustrated and disorganized. These unconventional tactics frustrated the invaders, forcing them to spread thin across human-controlled systems. What started as a swift invasion turned into a grueling slog, with the Zorathians struggling to maintain control. Humanity, meanwhile, grew bolder with each victory. Civilians rallied around their defenders, volunteering resources and support in unprecedented numbers. Even those who couldn't fight found ways to contribute, whether by building weapons, caring for the wounded, or simply spreading hope. As the war dragged on, Ryan and his fellow soldiers became symbols of humanity's resilience. They weren't just fighting for survival, they were proving that humanity could adapt, improvise, and overcome. The galaxy watched in stunned silence as this supposedly weak species stood toe-to-toe with one of the most fearsome races in existence. Late one night, as Ryan stared at the stars from the cockpit of his shuttle, he allowed himself a rare moment of reflection. The road ahead was still long and uncertain, but for the first time, he felt a glimmer of optimism. The Zorathians might be strong, but they didn't understand what made humanity truly dangerous: their refusal to give up, no matter the odds. And that, Ryan thought, might just be enough to turn the tide. The turning point in humanity's war against the Zorathians came with Operation Iron Dawn, a bold and desperate plan to strike at the heart of the enemy. For weeks, General Marcus Hale and his strategists had been planning the operation in secret. The goal was clear: destroy the Zorathian flagship, a colossal vessel that served as both their command center and a symbol of their dominance. If humanity could take it down, they would deal a crippling blow to the invaders' morale, and perhaps even force them to retreat. Leading the assault was Captain Ryan Brooks, whose success with the Shadow Wolves had earned him a promotion. Ryan now commanded a coalition fleet made up of Earth's best pilots and ships, all equipped with experimental technology derived from the artifact. Among them were the Iron Hawks, led by Emily Ross, whose fighters were faster and more agile than anything the Zorathians had faced before. It was a risky mission, but Ryan knew that playing it safe wouldn't win the war. The operation began under the cover of darkness. Humanity's fleet approached the Zorathian armada using cloaking devices, slipping past patrols undetected. As they neared the flagship, tension crackled through the air. Pilots exchanged nervous glances, their hands gripping controls tightly. Ryan's voice cut through the comms, steady and reassuring. "Stay sharp," he said. "We've trained for this. Trust your instincts and each other." When the order came to attack, the human fleet erupted from hiding, catching the Zorathians completely off guard. Explosions lit up space as fighters darted between enemy ships, firing weapons that pulsed with energy harvested from the artifact. The Zorathians scrambled to respond, but their movements were sluggish compared to the lightning-fast maneuvers of the human forces. Emily's Iron Hawks weaved through the chaos like ghosts, targeting weak points on larger vessels and creating openings for the rest of the fleet. At the center of the battle was the Zorathian flagship, its massive form bristling with cannons and turrets. Admiral Calivor himself was aboard, directing the defense with cold efficiency. He underestimated humanity's ingenuity, however, and that mistake would cost him dearly. Ryan led a daring charge toward the flagship, drawing fire away from the rest of the fleet. His ship shuddered under the barrage, alarms blaring. But he didn't falter. "Hold together," he muttered, gritting his teeth. "Just a little longer." Meanwhile, Samantha Drake worked her magic from afar. Using hacked communication channels, she fed false orders to the Zorathian fleet, sowing confusion among their ranks. Ships turned on each other, mistaking allies for enemies, while others broke formation entirely. The once unstoppable armada began to fracture, giving humanity the advantage they needed. As Ryan reached the flagship, Emily's team launched a coordinated assault on its shields. Their experimental weapons tore through the barriers, leaving the vessel vulnerable. With a final burst of speed, Ryan guided his ship straight into the flagship's hangar bay, deploying a squad of Marines led by Marcus Hale himself. Inside, the fighting was brutal and chaotic, but the humans pressed forward relentlessly. They fought not just for victory, but for survival, for every colony lost, every life taken. In the end, it was Ryan who confronted Admiral Calivor. The towering Zorathian stood defiant, his glowing red eyes filled with fury. But Ryan was faster, his enhanced reflexes allowing him to dodge the aliens' attacks and land a decisive blow. As Calivor fell, the flagship's systems began to fail, its destruction imminent. Ryan and his team barely escaped in time, their ship battered but intact. Behind them, the flagship exploded in a brilliant flash, sending shockwaves through the battlefield. The surviving Zorathians retreated, their morale shattered. For the first time, humanity had proven itself not just capable, but unstoppable. Back on Earth, news of the victory spread quickly. Cheers erupted in cities across the globe, and soldiers embraced one another in celebration. Laura Bennett watched the reports with quiet pride, knowing this was only the beginning. Humanity had turned the tide, but the war was far from over. As Ryan gazed at the stars from his cockpit, he felt a mix of relief and determination. The galaxy had underestimated humanity, but they wouldn't make that mistake again. Whatever came next, humanity was ready, and the Zorathians would soon learn what it meant to face the most terrifying combatants in the galaxy. In the aftermath of Operation Iron Dawn, humanity's victory sent ripples through the galaxy. The destruction of the Zorathian flagship was more than just a tactical triumph. It was a declaration that humanity could no longer be ignored or dismissed. Word of the battle spread quickly, reaching even the most distant corners of known space. For many alien species, it was a moment of stunned disbelief. How had this supposedly weak and primitive race managed to outwit and overpower one of the most feared civilizations in the galaxy? Among those watching closely were the Valens. Ambassador Lyra Nix had always been intrigued by humanity, but now she found herself deeply impressed. The courage and ingenuity displayed during the battle reminded her of her own people's early struggles when they first ventured into the stars. She decided it was time to act. The Valens, who had previously offered limited support, now approached humanity with a bold proposal: an alliance. Laura Bennett was summoned to meet with Lyra Nix aboard a neutral diplomatic station orbiting a distant star. The meeting took place in a sleek, minimalist chamber filled with soft light. As Laura entered, Lyra Nix greeted her warmly, her shimmering silver form radiating calm authority. "Your kind has proven itself," the ambassador said, her voice melodic yet firm. "We believe you are worthy allies in this fight." Lyra Nix went on to explain that the artifact discovered by humanity was far more significant than anyone realized. According to Valen legends, it was created by the progenitors, an ancient race that once ruled the galaxy. These beings had possessed technology and wisdom beyond comprehension, and they used artifacts like the one humanity had found to test other species. If a race could unlock its secrets and wield its power responsibly, they were deemed worthy inheritors of the progenitors' legacy. The Valens believed humanity might be such a species. They offered not only military aid, but also access to their vast knowledge of science and history. In return, they asked for continued cooperation in studying the artifact. Laura listened carefully, weighing the implications. This was a chance to tip the scales decisively in humanity's favor, but trust remained fragile. After consulting with Earth's leaders, Laura agreed to the alliance, ensuring safeguards were in place to protect humanity's interests. With the Valens' help, humanity's forces grew stronger. Their ships were upgraded with advanced shielding and propulsion systems, while soldiers received training in tactics honed over centuries of interstellar conflict. Scientists worked alongside Valen experts to refine the artifact's technology, unlocking new capabilities that pushed human innovation to unprecedented levels. Even ordinary civilians benefited, as shared knowledge improved medicine, energy production, and communication networks. But perhaps the greatest impact came from morale. Knowing they had powerful allies renewed humanity's determination to see the war through to the end. Emily Ross, leading patrols with her newly reinforced squadron, felt a surge of confidence she hadn't experienced before. "We're not alone anymore," she told her team during a briefing. "And we're stronger together." As humanity prepared for the next phase of the war, the Zorathians struggled to recover from their devastating loss. Without Admiral Calvor's leadership, their command structure fractured, leaving them vulnerable. Skirmishes along the borders became less frequent, though no less brutal. Ryan Brooks and his Shadow Wolves continued their hit-and-run missions, striking at supply depots and disrupting reinforcements. Each mission chipped away at the invaders' strength, bringing humanity closer to total victory. One evening, as Laura stood on the observation deck of the diplomatic station, gazing at the swirling colors of the nearby nebula, she reflected on how far they had come. Humanity had started as an underdog, dismissed and underestimated. But now, they stood shoulder to shoulder with one of the galaxy's oldest and wisest species, ready to face whatever challenges lay ahead. She turned to Lyra Nix, who stood beside her. "Do you think we can win?" Laura asked quietly. The Valen ambassador smiled faintly, her glowing eyes fixed on the stars. "I believe so," she replied. "Not because you are the strongest, but because you refuse to give up." That is a quality even the progenitors respected. For the first time since the war began, Laura allowed herself to feel a flicker of hope. The road ahead would still be difficult, but humanity wasn't walking it alone anymore. And with allies like the Valens and the untapped potential of the artifact, they might just have a fighting chance to reshape the galaxy forever. The final battle against the Zorathians was set to take place near the ruins of a former human colony, that desolate expanse of shattered buildings and scorched earth that had once been home to thousands. It was a symbolic choice, a reminder of everything humanity had lost and everything they were fighting to reclaim. The combined forces of humans and their new Valen allies gathered in orbit above the wasteland, preparing for what would likely be the most important fight of their lives. General Marcus Hale stood on the bridge of the flagship Eclipse *, his eyes fixed on the tactical display. The Zorathian fleet loomed large, their ships dark and menacing against the backdrop of space. They had regrouped under a new leader, determined to crush humanity once and for all. But this time, humanity wasn't alone. Alongside Earth's fleet floated sleek Valen cruisers, their shimmering hulls glinting faintly in the starlight. Together, the Allied fleet outnumbered the Zorathians. But numbers alone wouldn't guarantee victory. Emily Ross paced anxiously in the cockpit of her fighter, her hands brushing over the controls. She could feel the weight of the moment pressing down on her. This wasn't just another skirmish. It was the culmination of months of sacrifice, struggle, and loss. Beside her, Ryan Brooks sat quietly, his expression calm but focused. He glanced at Emily and gave her a small nod. "We've got this," he said simply. His confidence steadied her nerves. When the order came to engage, the battlefield erupted into chaos. Ships darted through space like fireflies, exchanging volleys of energy blasts and missiles. The air crackled with tension as fighters weaved between larger vessels, targeting weak points and creating openings for bombers to strike. Humanity's experimental weapons proved devastating, slicing through Zorathian shields with ease. Even so, the enemy fought fiercely, unwilling to surrender. Amidst the chaos, Samantha Drake worked tirelessly from behind the scenes. Seated in a dimly lit command center aboard the Eclipse *, she hacked into Zorathian systems, feeding false data to their commanders and sowing confusion across their ranks. Entire squadrons turned on each other, mistaking allies for foes, while others broke formation entirely. Her efforts gave humanity a critical edge, allowing their forces to press deeper into enemy territory. But the turning point came when Daniel Hayes unveiled humanity's ultimate weapon, a device reverse-engineered from the artifact. Scientists had discovered that the sphere amplified collective willpower, channeling it into a concentrated burst of psychic energy. Though dangerous and untested, the weapon represented humanity's best chance to end the war decisively. As the battle raged, Daniel activated the device from the safety of the Eclipse *''s engineering bay, focusing its power outward toward the Zorathian fleet. The effect was immediate and catastrophic. A wave of shimmering blue energy surged forward, engulfing the enemy ships. For a brief moment, time seemed to freeze as the Zorathians froze in place, their minds overwhelmed by the sheer force of humanity's resolve. Then, one by one, their vessels began to collapse, torn apart from within by the strain. The surviving ships turned tail and fled, abandoning the fight entirely. As the dust settled, cheers erupted across the Allied fleet. Pilots hugged one another in relief, while ground crews celebrated below decks. Laura Bennett watched the scene unfold with tears in her eyes, overwhelmed by the magnitude of what they had achieved. Against all odds, humanity had triumphed. Later that night, Adam Carter stood alone on the observation deck of the Eclipse *, staring at the glowing sphere that had started it all. It pulsed softly, almost as if acknowledging its role in humanity's rise. He felt a mix of awe and unease. The galaxy now knew what humanity was capable of, but at what cost? And what challenges lay ahead? For now, though, there was peace. Humanity had proven itself not just as survivors, but as conquerors. Whatever came next, they were ready. In the weeks following the final battle, humanity emerged as a force to be reckoned with. The Zorathians had been driven back, their once mighty fleet reduced to scattered remnants fleeing into the far reaches of space. News of the victory spread across the galaxy, sparking reactions ranging from admiration to fear. For the first time in history, humanity was no longer seen as weak or insignificant. They were recognized as a species capable of standing toe-to-toe with the most powerful civilizations. Laura Bennett played a key role in shaping this new reality. As humanity's lead diplomat, she worked tirelessly to forge treaties and alliances with other species. Many were eager to mend fences, hoping to benefit from humanity's rapid technological advancements. Others approached cautiously, wary of provoking a race that had just defeated one of the galaxy's greatest threats. Laura navigated these challenges with care, ensuring that humanity's rise didn't come at the expense of trust or cooperation. Meanwhile, Daniel Hayes and his team continued studying the artifact, trying to unlock its remaining secrets. Though much had been learned, there were still mysteries buried within its glowing surface. Some believed it held answers to questions about the progenitors, the ancient race that had created it, while others thought it might contain even greater powers waiting to be harnessed. Whatever the truth, Daniel knew the artifact was both a gift and a responsibility. Humanity had used it wisely so far, but he couldn't shake the feeling that they were only scratching the surface. On Earth, life began to return to normal, or as close to normal as possible after such a monumental conflict. Cities rebuilt themselves, scars of war slowly fading beneath layers of fresh construction. Memorials were erected for those who had fallen, their names etched into stone as reminders of the sacrifices made. Ordinary citizens carried on, inspired by stories of heroism and resilience. From pilots like Emily Ross to soldiers like Ryan Brooks, the people who had fought for humanity became symbols of hope and determination. Emily herself struggled to adjust to peacetime. After months of constant action, the quiet felt strange and unsettling. She spent hours staring at the stars from her cockpit, wondering if another threat lurked beyond the horizon. Yet, despite her unease, she found solace in knowing that humanity was stronger now than ever before. If danger did arise again, they would face it together. Ryan Brooks, too, grappled with the aftermath of the war. He had lost friends and comrades along the way, their faces haunting his thoughts at night. But he also took pride in what they had accomplished. During a ceremony honoring the Shadow Wolves, he stood tall as medals were pinned to his chest. "We didn't do this alone," he said humbly, glancing at the crowd of survivors. "It was all of us." As for Adam Carter, the man whose curiosity had started it all, he couldn't help but reflect on how far they had come. What began as a simple mining operation had sparked a chain reaction that changed the course of galactic history. Standing in the lab where the artifact rested, he whispered aloud, "What now?" The sphere pulsed faintly, as if responding to his question. Adam smiled faintly, realizing the journey was far from over. Humanity's legacy was written not just in victories but in lessons learned. They had proven that adaptability, creativity, and sheer willpower could overcome even the greatest odds. Other species watched closely, some with respect, others with caution. Humanity wasn't perfect. They carried scars from the war and faced challenges ahead, but they had earned their place among the stars. Underneath the endless expanse of space, the galaxy shifted. New alliances formed, old rivalries softened, and humanity stepped forward as a dominant force. Whether as leaders, innovators, or defenders, they were ready to shape the future. And though the road ahead remained uncertain, one thing was clear: humanity's story was just beginning.